Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and today we've got a lot to cover. A loaded episode today, ranging from injuries that are going to impact a certain Hawks rookie, also some important developments involving the face of the franchise, Trae Young. We're going to talk about more about his extension today. There's been more developments, so we've got to cover it here. Also, we're going to dive into Kobe Buffkin's rocky trajectory, his future outlook with the team. I just wrote an article about that exact thing, but I want to talk about it just direct to you guys here. I want to discuss that a little more. And also the status of Georges Niang. So we all know Niang was a Hawk last year after the trade deadline. He was traded away in the Kristaps Porzingis deal. He's now been traded again, and there's an interesting wrinkle with that, and you know, could allude to his potential return to Atlanta. Plus, what all of this means for Atlanta's outlook this season as they strive to be in contention in the Eastern Conference. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the video and talk about today's top story. Atlanta rookie forward Eli Njai has been dealt another unfortunate blow. The Spanish Basketball Federation confirmed Wednesday that Njai has withdrawn from training camp ahead of the 2025 Eurobasket Championship due to discomfort in his left shoulder. Certainly not a good sign. He just recovered from an injury he suffered in Summer League. He's going to undergo further medical testing to determine the full extent of the injury. We're obviously going to cover that all here when we get more details, but it's certainly not promising given what just happened prior to him starting the training in Spain. So Njai, who signed a two-way deal with the Hawks on July 3rd, just shortly after the NBA draft concluded, he had earned a spot on Spain's 15-man preliminary roster. It's no small feat considering, he was fighting for minutes alongside guys like Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Santi Aldama, Willie Hernan-Gomez, just a lot of experienced NBA players. And this is a guy who's coming just straight from Real Madrid on his first NBA contract. So he certainly impressed the training staff and the people who make the decision for the 15-man roster. He certainly impressed the Atlanta Hawks staff too, because they signed him very quickly after the NBA draft concluded. So the 6'8" Spanish forward has a strong pedigree, having played with Real Madrid since 2017 and also winning 8 titles across European and domestic competitions. He appeared in 65 games last season across all leagues. He averaged a modest 3.6 points and 2.6 rebounds. Definitely not eye-popping stats, but the raw potential is there, and we've seen it all, and we saw it actually in Summer League. He even started in the ACB Finals, helping Real Madrid secure back-to-back championships. And he was a crucial part of that. It hasn't been a smooth transition to the NBA, though. Not at all. So Njai was limited to just one Summer League appearance due to a left wrist injury. And now this shoulder setback raises real concerns about his durability. The Hawks certainly can't afford having guys that are injury prone after the history of the guys that are currently on the roster. It raises real questions. So I mean, for a young big who's trying to prove himself on a two-way deal, being labeled as injury prone this early it isn't just bad luck. It might be a little bit of a red flag, and I'm not going to hold too much against him until we actually see him on the court, and hopefully he doesn't play a lot of actual minutes with the Atlanta Hawks this season. That would mean the team is very injured, but that is always a possibility, and we got to have these guys ready to step up. We can't have our depth pieces getting injured as well. The Hawks certainly believe in Njai's potential, but if these injuries persist, his ability to develop on both ends of the floor may be compromised. We gotta hope this isn't a sign of what's to come for his overall career. We're obviously going to keep you guys updated when we get more information. When that comes out, following his medical evaluations, I'm certainly excited about Njai. I think he has great potential to potentially be a rotation piece in Atlanta's rotation in the future, maybe even not in Atlanta, somewhere in the NBA, because those guys who immediately sign their two-way deals, they don't always, hit the prime of their career there just because this is a team taking a chance on him. He has raw potential. I certainly hope he's not injury prone for the rest of his career. But this is a little disappointing just in general. I was looking forward to watching him in Eurobasket, but withdrawing your name just immediately after doesn't sound too promising. Hopefully this isn't something that's going to sideline him for very long. So now we're going to talk about a situation that it's been all over major media storylines over the past few weeks, just because of what hasn't happened. Trae Young is very disappointed over his current contract status. So, and this is what NBA insider Mark Spears said, who has close ties with the Young family and also Trae himself and the Atlanta Hawks. So this is certainly reliable information, which is why it raises concern. So he said that Trae is frustrated that he hasn't reached an agreement on an extension, and the Hawks haven't offered anything. Very weird, just a very weird situation. So rather than force the issue, his current plans are to play out this season and then revisit things next summer. He does have a $48.9 million player option for the 2026-27 season, but the silence from the front office speaks volumes. It's not what I certainly expected when we started talking about Trae's extension as soon as the offseason began. Young is eligible for that 4-year, $229 million max extension right now, the one that De'Aaron Fox just reached with the Spurs. That number could go up to a record-breaking $335.9 million extension if he makes an All-NBA team this upcoming season. And so no deal has been reached on this current extension. Maybe they're playing it out. If the Hawks were to win a lot next season and we're among the top in the Eastern Conference, maybe they go on a little bit of a playoff run and Trae makes All-NBA. Maybe they'll give him he'll opt out of that deal in the offseason, and then the Hawks will be able to offer him the Supermax. The Hawks would be the only team that would be able to offer him the Supermax next offseason, so maybe that's what they're holding out for. But if Trae's willing to sign that extension right now for a lesser figure, I don't understand why we would elect to just see if he can win, and then once he's eligible for a Supermax, which is a whole lot more money, signing him then. That's going to certainly affect Atlanta's cap going forward. But let's be honest here. When there's smoke, there's fire, especially in the NBA. I mean, this is the same franchise that just retooled its roster completely by adding Kristaps Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, Asa Newell. I mean, we're going to have Jalen Johnson returning from injury, and it's a really loaded team. It's a very good team. There's a lot of talent. So why is one of the most dynamic guards in the NBA uncertain about his future? I mean, there are a lot of factors here. The Hawks also need to make a decision on Dyson Daniels. There's no rush on this one. He's eligible for his rookie scale extension, though. And I don't want to have a situation where Dyson's going to hit restricted free agency and some team is going to offer him a max just because of the overall impact he's had on the Atlanta Hawks and the NBA in general. I certainly want us to lock up both of these guys, but it appears very unlikely. The deadline for that Dyson extension is actually right before the season starts, and if no deal is reached, he's going to become a restricted free agent in 2026. Now, obviously, one could assume that the Hawks would match any offer given to Dyson Daniels, but this just isn't a good position to have leverage-wise. It feels like this franchise is just keeping its options open, and they want to see what this team can do next season, and really that includes mostly Trae. For fans, that's an uneasy feeling. It's an uneasy feeling for myself, just because it's been a very good offseason, but this whole situation appears very messy. It could affect chemistry. It could affect team performance. I don't know why we wouldn't just go ahead and lock him up. Trae would be willing to sign an extension if the Hawks offered it to him. They just haven't yet. And it's very weird. I mean, when the face of your team is publicly voicing disappointment, that's not a good sign I mean, Trae's a leader, but that's not a good sign for what's to come in the locker room. Maybe that extra motivation will make Trae have a career year. Maybe he performs the best he's ever performed with this very good roster, the best roster he's ever had, and then the Hawks feel comfortable giving him the Supermax. But then I feel like they would have the thought in the back of their head, just like, wow, we could have locked him up for 4 years on a much cheaper deal. Instead, we elected to just see what he could do, even though we know exactly what he can do when surrounded with a good team. So now we're going to move on to Kobe Buffkin's uncertain future. And like I said, I wrote an article about this not too long ago, but it's becoming a story that's, more and more difficult to spin positively. Heading into his third season, Kobe Buffkin hasn't carved out a reliable role in Quinn Snyder's rotation. I mean, not at all, in the least. So he was drafted 15th overall in 2023. He's only played in 27 career games. He's been very, very injury prone. Speaking of injury prone players, he's averaged 5 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.6 assists per contest, and his shooting splits are especially underwhelming. Over his career, just 37% from the field and 22% from three. Not good in the least. The Hawks made a statement in Summer League by giving him the full control at that starting point guard and played him in all of the games except the last one. And while he did show flashes of playmaking and leadership, the scoring inefficiency remained an issue, and that was the biggest thing the Hawks wanted to at least see growth from him in by giving him free reign. They wanted to see him make shots consistently. He averaged 19.5 points, and that looks impressive, but he shot just 35% from the floor. At this stage, entering year 3, those numbers don't inspire confidence. He looked great as a floor general, and the Hawks don't go 4-0 without him. That is certainly not a thing that would happen. He was very important to that team, but he just shot very poorly, and the Hawks don't have room for inconsistent shooting behind Trae Young and Dyson Daniels. I mean, off the bench, they brought in guys like Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker to help for that. Both are much better shooters, and both are capable of handling the ball. So it puts Kobe Buffkin's spot in the rotation going forward very much in jeopardy, and really just spot on the roster in jeopardy as well. V. Krejci is another name to watch, especially since Coach Snyder experimented with him at the backup point guard last year. I'd honestly be more comfortable running V at the backup point guard next season. It's a thing where it's like he's kind of just falling out of Atlanta's long-term plans. Then there's the roster crunch, and I covered this as well in the article. The second unit's going to include guys like Onyeka Okongwu, Mo Gay, Asa Newell, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, V. Krejci, and possibly even a guy like Caleb Houston. If that deal becomes official, of course. That's a very crowded bench. Right now, Buffkin is at real risk of becoming the odd man out, and I think it was the right pick at the time, but it certainly doesn't look promising for the future. The clock is seriously ticking. He's got to turn it around very quickly. Unless he can make that leap in consistency and efficiency, I don't think Buffkin's a part of the long-term future for the Atlanta Hawks. Maybe they'll keep him this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if they traded him at the deadline. It's reached that point, but you know, if he goes out and performs, I'll keep my mouth shut and I'll eat my words, because I certainly am rooting for him. At the end of the day, I'm rooting for the Hawks just as much as you guys. So now we're going to talk about an interesting storyline regarding a former Hawk who didn't really play a whole lot with the Hawks because he just played the second half of the season last year with the Hawks. But after being traded to the Celtics earlier this offseason as a part of the Kristaps Porzingis deal to Atlanta, Georges Niang is actually being traded once more, this time to the Utah Jazz. So going from the Hawks to the Celtics to the Jazz is very disappointing for Niang personally. According to ESPN's Shams Charania, the Celtics have traded Niang and 2 second-round picks to the Jazz in exchange for rookie RJ Lewis Jr. For those keeping track, Niang was briefly a Hawk last season. He appeared in 79 games between the Cavs and the Atlanta Hawks. He averaged 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. Pretty good numbers. He provided what he provided. He knew his role. He was a sharpshooter off the bench, and he did that just fine. Hawks fans actually grew to love him. I personally loved George, and you know, I was a little disappointed in parting ways with him, but his game is very limited, and bringing a guy like Kristaps Porzingis in his place is certainly a remarkable upgrade. Fans enjoyed his energy, his shot making and locker room presence. Also, his trash talking was probably elite and one of the best in the league. But here's where things get a little interesting. If a player is traded and waived by his new team, he cannot re-sign with the original team for 1 year. But if he's traded twice and then waived, that rule doesn't apply. He can go ahead and sign with the Hawks if they reach a buyout. So if Niang reaches that buyout agreement with the Jazz, which is looking very likely, the Hawks could theoretically bring him back to fill their final roster spot. I think that would be hilarious. And honestly, it wouldn't be a bad move. Atlanta could use a veteran stretch four who spaces the floor, understands his role, and provides some veteran leadership off the bench and has familiarity with the system. I don't hate the idea. Niang would be a cheap, efficient, and already familiar with the system guy that would fit right into this three-point heavy offense. I mean, it's unclear yet whether Utah plans to keep him, but that buyout is appearing likely, and all signs point to it. And if it happens, don't be surprised if Atlanta at least gives George a call. I think that would be great, because then at the end of the day, Atlanta would have just given up Terrence Mann and a late first-round pick for Kristaps Porzingis. A very, very, very good deal. And just another great deal that was made by Anzi Saleh. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Hawks Latest. We covered a lot, from Eli Njai's injury to Trae Young's contract extension and frustration, if you will. Kobe Buffkin's uncertain future in the rotation, and the door possibly reopening for Georges Niang in Atlanta. Something that would be very fun, I personally think. So let me know in the comments. If Niang is bought out, would you want the Hawks to re-sign him? And what do you think about Trae Young's contract situation? Just let me know your thoughts really in the comments. Do you think Trae is going to stay long term? Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on Hawks Latest. We're going to be keeping you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks every single day. So once again, I'm Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and I'll see you guys next time.